Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Lee County. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Welcome to the Lee County LPA meeting on August 25th, 2025. We have a number of things to discuss today. This is a public forum, so if you are here to speak but not on an agenda item, this would be an opportunity for you to do that. Thank you very much. We would like you to, the county attorney, to please review.
Good morning, Joe Adams at the County Attorney's Office. I've reviewed the affidavit publication and has been properly advertised.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. You all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. We value and want to hear everything that everyone wants to say. If you're not accustomed to speaking at a podium, the mic is kind of down low, so to make it easier so that we don't miss anything, please speak into the mic as directly as possible. That'll be very helpful. Thank you very much. All right, members of the LPA, our first item of business today is the minutes from our July 28 meeting. Do we have any comments or a motion on those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve as printed.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a quorum today of 4, so we'll be able to conduct business today, but it will require a lot of. We'll need to be very involved today since we're a little short on manpower. We're going to be discussing as our next item is Lee Plan amendments, agenda item 4A, CPA 2024-00006, Horizon Tamiami. It is to amend Lee Plan Map 1C mixed-use overlay to add 20.2 acres of the subject property to the mixed-use overlay. The property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Brooks Road and North Tamiami Trail in North Fort Myers. Do we have an applicant?
Good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Megan Strayhorn. I'm an attorney with Strayhorn and Persons Mullica. We are here on behalf of the applicant for CPA 2024-00006. With us today, we have our certified planner, Veronica Martin, who will do the presentation and outline the request that is before you today. It is simple and straightforward, which is just continuing that mixed-use overlay following US 41. Also with us here for any questions that you may have, we have Dean Martin, engineer from TDM, and we also have Ariel Poulos from Terrell Hall and Associates to answer any environmental questions that you may have. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Martin.
Thank you. For the record, Veronica Martin with TDM Consulting. I'm going to give an overview of the project today and also take questions from the local planning agency and the public, which I'm thrilled to see that there's quite a few people today. If I don't speak up loudly enough, please raise your hand because I tend to speak softly, okay? First off, I did want to say that staff did recommend adopting this mixed-use overlay plan amendment. The staff report was encouraging. It did offer their support and analysis of the criteria for adoption of this amendment request. Again, our request is to amend Lee Plan Map 1C, the mixed-use overlay map, to add 20.2 acres of the subject property to the mixed-use overlay. The subject property is outlined in yellow on the slide. The property is located at the northeast corner of North Tamiami Trail and Brooks Road in the North Fort Myers Planning Community. Lee Plan Policy 11.2.3 permits the Board of County Commissioners to extend the mixed-use overlay boundary up to 1/4 mile to accommodate developments partially within or adjacent to the mixed-use overlay. The entire site totals 27.36 acres, including 20.16 acres of uplands and 7.20 acres of wetlands. The slide on the left shows the current mixed-use overlay in light purple, which is seen to the south of and west of our property. And the slide on the right shows the addition of the 20.16 acres of uplands to the mixed-use overlay. And as you can see, only the uplands are included in this request today. Wetlands are excluded from the mixed-use overlay. I wanted to include a slide of the survey so that you can see what the site actually looks like. The site itself is outlined in red. You can see the two large parcels that are not included in the subject property. They are actually FDOT drainage ponds. It also shows the wetland area in the gray hatching that includes Powell Creek. The site has a future land use classification of intensive development as shown in pink and wetlands as shown in green along Powell Creek as mentioned before. And as you can see, the properties to the west and south also have a future land use classification of intensive development, while the properties to the north and east are wetlands and central urban future land use classification. The current zoning of the property, I think my mic just cut out. Sorry. CG, C-1, and RS1, which is already a mix of commercial and residential zoning districts. The CG zoning permits general commercial uses, while the C-1 zoning district permits both commercial and multifamily residential uses. The RS-1 district permits single-family residential. And as you can see from this slide, the western portion of the site with the RS1 zoning also includes the wetlands, which cannot be developed. I'll come back to this slide. Density, per the Lee Plan tables, density in the intensive development future land use category, the base density is a maximum of 14 dwelling units per acre. With bonus density, you're permitted a maximum of 22 dwelling units per acre. You're also allowed to use the underlying density of the wetlands in your density calculations. The surrounding land use shows a mix of single-family, multifamily, commercial, and mobile homes. The site itself is currently vacant, and again, there's two FDOT drainage areas on this site. I also included the flux map provided by Terrell Hall and Associates. As you can see, the hatching in the green is the wetlands, which we are planning to preserve in its entirety, with the exception of the small pocket that's located in the center of the site. Again, at 7.2 acres of wetlands that we're preserving. We also, as part of our development plans, which include a conventional rezoning, an FDOT permit, utility permitting, and South Florida Water Management District environmental resource permit for drainage. For traffic, part of the FDOT permit includes building a turn lane on North Tamiami Trail to have direct access from North Tamiami directly into the site. We have heard that FDOT has plans to install a traffic light at the intersection of Brooks Road and North Tamiami Trail. We're still working on confirming that. That so far has been a rumor. We don't have a timeline for that at this point. We did a thorough analysis of public services for this community, including traffic, potable water, sanitary sewer, surface water and drainage, public schools, parks, rec, and open space. We also included letters of adequacy and support from the public service entities from fire, EMS, police, solid waste, mass transit, and schools. Our submittal packet also includes the full environmental permit, historical resources, state and regional plan policies, compliance with the LEED plan, and compliance with the North Fort Myers Community Plan. This amendment request is consistent with LEED Plan Policies 1.1.2, Intensive Development, and Objective 1.5, Wetlands. It's also consistent with Goal 30 of the North Fort Myers Community Plan. We did have a public informational meeting that included this amendment request along with a conventional rezoning request in spring of last year. It was April 2nd, 2024. Again, this amendment is consistent with LEED Plan Policy 1.1.2, the Intensive Development Future Land Use category, which is the most intensive development category with the highest levels of urban services, and it does promote a mixed-use development. Objective 2.2 directs new growth to areas where adequate public facilities exist and where compact and contiguous development patterns can be created. Objective 11.1 is the mixed-use overlay criteria. We have to demonstrate proximity to transit, pedestrian and automobile connections, appropriate future land use categories, public facilities and infrastructure, and the single-family residential development that's located east of Powell Creek. This proposed amendment does meet all the requirements set forth in LEED Plan Policy 11.2.1. In conclusion, I do want to say that this amendment request does meet the requirements of Policy 11.2.1 of the mixed-use overlay. The incorporation of the subject property within the mixed-use overlay does not increase the potential density of the property and is consistent with Goal 101. Utility infrastructure is in place and available, and all documentation required for this application has been provided. Again, staff did support adopting this amendment request, and I'm available to answer any questions along with Dean Martin for traffic and drainage and Ariel Poulos for environmental concerns.
Thank you. Members of the LPA, any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I did have a question. On your access points onto Brooks Road, I know that you're supposed to have interconnections so the residential can reach the commercial. Will the public traveling on Brooks Road also be able to access the commercial from Brooks?
Yes, ma'am. This is not a gated community.
Okay.
Dustin, anything?
Yeah, can you talk through the public facilities capacity letters? Are there any conditions that come along with that to surrounding residents?
There aren't. The only public facility concern was that Lee Tran was thinking about ending their line near the property. It hasn't fully been decided at this time, but that was the only concern. Everything else was adequate, in place, all the infrastructure is there. Again, I know that traffic on Brooks Road was a concern. That's why I talked about the fact that we are building the turn lane on 41 on North Tamiami Trail, the fact that we have been in talks with FDOT regarding a traffic signal at Brooks and 41, which would be very helpful. And again, we're doing the ERP to assist with drainage. The property's in the coastal high hazard zone, so we'll be required to do the emergency preparedness plan as part of the DO. And of course, we're still going through a conventional rezoning.
Thank you.
Can you pull back to one of the slides that shows the parcels? I'm looking at the northern DOT pond. Yeah, that'll work.
Oh, okay.
Where you see the 740 note near 41,
Yes.
Will the commercial be able to cross over that? That looks like that's the access for the DOT pond.
So in our preliminary site plans, we actually have a road going around, and you had to apologize. I had to apologize because we've gone through several iterations of the site plan since we haven't submitted the development order yet. And a conventional rezoning doesn't require a master concept plan. So this is all in the works. But we are requesting an access across that little itty bitty area that belongs to FDOT. We're proposing a road around that to also connect. And it'll be a nice walking path too, so.
And then similar, it looks like there's a drainage that cuts through the property.
Right.
And I'm asking this because part of the mixed use requires interconnection.
Right.
And I'm just asking whether those commercial parcels will interconnect, or will each access point be separate to 41?
No, they will all interconnect.
That works, thank you.
I will say, with the exception of the corner, and I don't know if I can point to it here. So as you can see, the wetlands go right up to the property line. We won't have access to that for vehicles, but we will have pedestrian access because we're thinking of doing a dog park there. But, yeah.
Regarding the light at Brooks and Tamiami Trail, do you know if the light currently meets the FDOT requirements to trigger a light as it is right now?
I do not know that answer. I apologize.
Okay, so I'm assuming you wouldn't know with the project adding that would trigger the light either.
I don't. Mr. Stouter?
In regards to the 8 acres that is wetlands, what is the interconnectivity of that to adjoining wetlands?
We've talked with staff about doing a boardwalk through the wetlands, but it is our goal to preserve them in their entirety. Part of the development order will include the 50-foot wetland buffer, which will also include if the client decides to move forward with a boardwalk through the buffer area as well. But we don't plan to impact it at all.
What would happen if someone were to go in and mitigate those 8 acres? Thus the question for its interconnectivity, making it more difficult and expensive to mitigate. Is that then available for additional density if it were to be mitigated?
We are not proposing to mitigate the wetlands. We kind of like the fact that it acts as its own buffer to the single-family residential neighbors to our east. Plus, it's home and habitat to a lot of species. Plus, there's, Mullet Creek runs through there. So it is our intention to preserve that. We don't want to, it acts as our open space and indigenous preserve. It, makes us good neighbors to the single-family neighbors to the east. And like I said, it's been our intention from the beginning. And we do have a wetland jurisdictional line for the wetlands from the district.
So are the wetlands connected to adjoining wetlands to the north? Because they're not.
They are, and forgive me if I'm misspeaking here, but it's my understanding that property to the north is in Lee County's 2020 conservation lands.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Having no further questions for the applicant, would the staff like to address them?
All right, good morning. Kate Burgess, AICP Principal Planner with the Lee County Planning Section. This first case is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment known as Horizon Tamiami CPA. Some of my presentation will be a little bit of a repeat of what the applicant provided, so just bear with me. So the applicant is requesting to incorporate 20.2 acres of the subject property into the mixed-use overlay. There is a companion rezone that has been requested on the subject property as well. That case number is RUZ 2024-00006. The comprehensive plan amendment only addresses the request to be incorporated into the mixed-use overlay. The proposed amendment does not change the future land use category or allow for additional density. The subject property is a mixture of intensive development and wetlands future land uses. As noted previously, the applicant is requesting only a portion of the property to be incorporated into the mixed-use overlay. That area is shown on the map on the slide outlined in red. The full boundaries of the subject property are shown outlined in black. The proposed amendment would extend the mixed-use overlay, which currently stops at Brooks Road, to the uplands portion of the subject property. You can see the existing mixed-use overlay on the map in the purple hatching. The proposed amendment is consistent generally with the LEA plan. I'm going to highlight only a couple of the LEA plan policies that are most applicable. So LEA plan policy 1.1.2, which provides the description of the intensive development future land use category, describes it as the most intense future land use category that promotes mixed-use developments on suitable lands within this category. The proposed amendment to incorporate the subject property into the mixed-use overlay further facilitates mixed-use development on the subject property, consistent with this policy. LEA Plan Policy 11.2.1 provides the requirements for the mixed-use overlay. The subject property is within the extended pedestrian shed of existing transit routes, and staff confirmed with LETRAN, I believe last week, that the existing transit route will remain. That had been up in the air until recently, I believe. So the letter has been updated in the file. It also contains pedestrian and automobile connections to adjacent uses, has an existing intensive development future land use designation, access to public facilities and infrastructure, and will not intrude into predominantly single-family neighborhoods. Therefore, the portion of the property the applicant is requesting to be incorporated into the mixed-use overlay meets all of the locational requirements of the mixed-use overlay. The proposed amendment is also consistent with Goal 30 and the intent to improve the livability and economic vitality of North Fort Myers by promoting compact mixed-use development, attracting appropriate investment to the commercial corridor, and preserving natural resources by excluding large portions of the wetlands on the property from the request. Additionally, the applicant has held the required public input meetings for comprehensive plan amendments within a community plan area under Goal 17. The subject property is within the coastal high hazard area. Policy 101.1.4 addresses comprehensive plan amendments that increase density within the coastal high hazard area. As noted in the staff report, the proposed amendment does not effectively increase density above what is currently allowed on the subject property. Therefore, the proposed amendment does not conflict with this policy. Additionally, all residential development will be required to meet the mitigation requirements outlined in this policy upon development. The proposed amendment also does not conflict with any other policies, objectives, or goals within the LEAP plan. Based on the analysis included in the staff report and in this presentation, staff recommends the board adopt the proposed amendment. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions at this time.
One of the requirements of mixed-use overlay is that it is located within the extended pedestrian shed of established transit routes. I understand the bus route along this area might be removed. Would the project still be consistent with that if that route is removed?
So we confirmed with LETRAN a couple weeks ago that that route is not going to be removed. They're going to maintain it. They're also looking at creating a mobility on demand service for North Fort Myers, and this would be in that area as well. So it is still consistent with the requirements of the mixed-use overlay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members of the public, this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts. We have 3 cards. If you wish to speak and haven't filled out a card, please see Janet and fill one of these out so that we can keep track. Again, we ask that you speak into the mic, and we ask that you pace your comments to 3 minutes so that we can hear everybody and everybody gets a chance. So with that said, Jim Ayalana?
I need to. Apologize to everybody because my hearing disability and the ambience of the room has caused me not to understand most of what everybody has said here. So my questions may have been answered, but my ability to
We understand, Mr. Ayalana. We thank you for being here today.
I apologize. I may be redundant here. I wanted to be sure that the decision to further this effort was based on the extraordinary goings-on in the neighborhood in terms of the DOT actions on 41 that started after the dates on the description of information provided online, and that it's still continuing, and that my question is, were these conclusions reached in consideration of all of the efforts being done by the Department of Transportation, and being also mindful of the residents in the neighborhood roughly along the roadway supplies into Port Edison, Kansas City. The single-family residents could be jeopardized by the multi-family intensity of 468 units in that tiny area. We have a lot of issues at this current time just dealing with access in and out of that neighborhood, and that this construction project will cause many, many, many more difficulties in the future that I don't see being covered by the plans put forth so far. I haven't read the North Fort Myers Community Plan yet, nor am I aware of the Lee Plan, so I have a lot of homework to do. I apologize for my inability to understand most of what's being said. I have a high-end disability in my hearing, and I'm dealing with it now, but I haven't solved that problem yet. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Ayalana, for your excellent comments. We appreciate them. The next person would be Roger Horton. Mr. Horton?
Good morning, everyone. I live very near the project in the old Port Edson area, which is right up Brooks Road and over that small bridge. And one thing that hasn't been addressed this morning is I was present there during Hurricane Irma, during Hurricane Ian, during the two that we had last year, which was Helene and Milton. And in every occasion, Ian being the worst, the water was up in Ian to the top of the bridge and went to the center of 41, meaning that Brooks Road was on an average of under 3 feet of water, okay? Including that entire area that they're planning for the project was underwater. Secondly, because of that, all of the residences, the buildings and so forth, in this entire area of Port Edson and everything around it were underwater. My house was over 3 foot water over the floor. And it's by FEMA, by Lee County, by North Fort Myers and Fort Myers. All of those residents are required to be built. They cannot be anything really in repairs to a large extent. They have to go up to at least 13.7 is what I have feet for the floor of the building. Well, you couldn't even get in and out of that place or any place on Brooks Road during those storms because they were deep underwater. The small bridge that you see going into the community right adjacent to this area, you see it on the map if they wanted to throw it up again, but the water was right to the top of that bridge. Okay? This is an issue. Secondly, if you stop and think about the number of vehicles, they're talking 400 and I forget the exact number, but anyways, you figure in the average family unit or even a couple, there's going to be 2 cars per each. So in the parking area, there are 900 to 1,000 cars. Also the influx of the amount of people. Any morning you want to go out on 41 right now, you have for at least an hour traffic is backed up all the way to Pine Island Road to the bridge and over into town for at least an hour, stop and go. You can't even get in and out. If you want to get out, you'll have to wait through at least 3 lights on Cardinal Drive or Pondella Road. So you've already got an extreme traffic problem there, and this is the summertime before the tourists arrive. There's a number of things there, but like I say, in my opinion, besides traffic, the biggest issue is the fact is what's going to happen when you have a storm. All of that is underwater. Having drilled in the area for heliopiles, I know that once you punch through a few feet of marl and road rock that's been put down on those properties, you then have to go through muck for 40 feet before you hit rock. So it's really unstable ground for a 5-story building unless there's immense amount of piles driven. Just some of the things that I see there is an issue. And granted, you're not building up to the wetlands, but you have a good hurricane and all of that is underwater, even in the areas they have proposed. Like I say, water came right to the center of 41 there.
Yes, sir.
It runs up on a slope, and all of the businesses in that area were underwater.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Mary Sandrio?
Good morning. A couple of things I'd like to raise for consideration. The first one was that there was an assertion that this will not intrude on the single-family dwellings that are right across the canal. And I'm curious what the definition of intrude is. If we're simply looking at a map, it looks like it's not intruding. But there are a lot of ways, that's like saying, well, if that's a non-smoking area and this is a smoking area, we can pretend there's a line here and there's no intrusion. But there's a lot of ways that things cross barriers, and it doesn't have to just be physical on a map. So there's so many things that are going to impact this. The last presentation was excellent. We can think about noise. We can think about additional pressures on traffic access. We can think about intrusion into the current water supply, the ability to do sewage. I mean, there are so many issues now, and you're telling me there's no intrusion on all these difficulties we already have by putting this highest, I cannot even believe, well, this will get into my second point, but that we are allowing the highest intensity of development right next to wetlands. That doesn't even make sense to me. I mean, how does any jurisdiction think that's a good idea when there's gradations of development possible? Why would you put the most intense thing next to wetlands? And we already have so many problems, and we can't even solve that for the people who already live there. Okay. I am completely against using the wetlands in the denominator of making the dwellings even more intense. That's an intrusion on the wetlands. You may not be stacking it in the wetlands, but you're stacking it above the wetlands. So they are intruding. I disagree with that. There's this talk about pedestrian. Where's this pedestrian access? I live there. You can't even bike down the road. You'll get killed. You can't walk down the road. Where's all this pedestrian stuff they're talking about? We lived there. There is no pedestrian anything. There's not even sidewalks there. The other question I have is, everybody's paying homage to all these Fort Myers things, especially 11.2.1. It references this, it's compliant with that. When was the last time this stuff was updated? Has any of this been updated since Ian? Since Milton? Since Helene? Why are we paying homage to stuff that is, I don't even get it. None of that makes this compliant with reality. How about we look at what's going on today and make decisions?
Thank you, Mrs. Sandro. The last card I have, and if you still want to speak and you haven't put a card together, see Janet, because we want to hear from anybody that wants to speak. Michael O'Neill.
I'm surprised there aren't more people already signed up, but I feel like the county commissioners and the developer are opening themselves up to a massive class action lawsuit if they go through with this plan. Because most of those single-family homes to the east of that proposed development never flooded in historically over 50 years. And then starting with Ian and then Helene and Milton, 3 times in just a little over 2 years. So you'd be hard-pressed to convince any of us that went through all that you can engineer your way around that kind of flooding, especially when common sense would tell anybody looking at that aerial shot with the 2 retention ponds already on site, north and south of where they plan to pave 20 acres. Those lakes, just last night, the southern pond has an alarm on it in a pumping station. And that alarm and a light goes on whenever there's heavy rains, and someone has to come out and service that. I always wanted to stop and ask them exactly what they're doing and how that's managed, but that happened just last night. It happens a handful of times every year, every rainy season. So I understand that there's a proposal to have catch basins and culverts and even underground storage tanks to manage the watershed, but that's just insane. I mean, to pave over, regardless of how you plan to store it, it's eventually going to get filtered off to the wetlands in the creek itself, which, as Mary just stated, all these goals and policies that were referenced in the presentation, this plan is actually quite contrary to those. The Goal 30 from the North Fort Myers Community Plan, stabilizing, enhancing existing neighborhoods, I don't see how that is doing anything but destabilizing our neighborhood and preserving natural resources. That part in particular is galling to me. The thing, this phrase that recurs again and again in the Lee Plan is intensive development. And like Mary said, I don't understand how that's even something that anyone would consider so close to very sensitive wetlands. And that the entire Powell Creek ecosystem, which of course goes right into the Caloosahatchee and eventually the Gulf. And as Finding Nemo should have taught us, all drains lead to the ocean. And where you have people, unfortunately, intentional or not, you also have a lot of pollution of all sorts. That many cars, 500 some or 1,000, well, roughly 1,000 people or more living on that little plot of land are going to have, there's going to be accidental spillage of garbage out of car doors and open dumpsters. Cars are going to leak fluids, all sorts of petrochemicals that will eventually wash into the wetlands in the creek. So it was kind of galling that the last point on policy 11.21 is number 5, will not intrude into predominantly single-family residential neighborhoods. That's the last consideration. Policy 5.1.2 says, prohibit residential development where physical restraints or hazards exist or require the density and design to be adjusted accordingly. Such constraints or hazards include but are not limited to flood, storm, or hurricane hazards, unstable soil or geologic conditions, environmental limitations, aircraft noise, or other characteristics that may endanger the residential community. So I think we've illustrated already like how that, I guess, intrusion, whatever you consider an intrusion is a matter of, it's subjective, I suppose, but it would definitely be an intrusion on our neighborhood from noise pollution. It'd be an eyesore. Anything 5 stories tall is going to be taller than anything else around it. We'll be able to see it over the treetops. And I could say a lot more, but I guess my time is up. Hopefully the rest of you will.
Would staff like to address any of these concerns?
Good morning again. So some of these are concerns that I can address. Some are some that the applicant may want to address. As far as consistency with policy 5.1.2, which discusses physical constraints or hazards on the site, it stipulates that you can design around that. So if a site cannot be designed to be, to mitigate those constraints, then that's when that policy would sort of kick in. Additionally, the density already exists on the site. The uses are basically allowed as they currently exist too. That's already commercial along 41. So this doesn't really change any of those allowed uses or the allowed density. There are a number of other items that were brought up that would be addressed at the time of development order, such as flooding, the ground stability, elevation. All of that gets sort of reassessed it gets assessed at every level. So we assess it initially when we receive the application for the comp plan related items. Zoning will assess it for what they're looking for with the rezone. Development services will assess it for what they're looking for with the development order, and then once they finally submit for permits, it'll be reassessed at that point as well. So this is something that's going to be reviewed and re-reviewed and reviewed again for all of the most recent requirements many times before it actually gets anything on the ground. I think that is most of what we would cover from what was brought up. I will let the applicant, I would imagine that they want to address some of what was brought up as well.
Would the applicant like to address these concerns?
I wrote down the items that were of major concern to the public today. The first gentleman wanted to know, were the conclusions from FDOT reached before or after everything that's going on North Tamiami Trail and North Fort Myers with our application? So the engineering division of TDM Consulting has been meeting with FDOT ongoing to get the proper permits, because an FDOT permit can take up to a year to get. So we try to start that process early, get the talks in early, find out everything that's going on, what we need to do. That's why I said we were had heard that they were putting in a signal light at Brooks and Tamiami, but we haven't received full confirmation. That's still something that we're working on, along with the length of the turn lane on 41. There's still a lot to be decided, so that's still a work in progress. As far as the flooding, I'm sure a lot of you know that FEMA has updated their flood maps several times since Hurricane Ian. In addition to that, Lee County requires our property or any site that's more than 10 acres in size to get a South Florida Water Management District environmental resource permit. So they will have to bring fill into the site. They'll have to provide adequate drainage. They'll have to mitigate for any flooding that will come, and they'll have to comply with FEMA and the district and Lee County codes. So again, this is a long-term project. This is the first step in that process. And as Ms. Burgess had stated, this property already is permitted for the uses. The rezoning is so we can have a consistent C-1 zoning district. We're asking to amend the mixed-use overlay map, which does not affect density or traffic.
Okay. Do you have any further comments?
I do not. Thank you.
This closes the public portion.
Can we ask a question?
You may, Jennifer.
Well, have you looked at, what is it, Brooks Road? Are you planning to put a sidewalk along Brooks Road as part of your development order?
Yes. Will be a sidewalk along Brooks Road, along North Tamiami Trail, and also internal to the site.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Another question.
Yes, sir.
I realize it's very preliminary, but flooding seems to be the major concern, right?
Correct.
So as a lifelong resident, I've seen the development impacts around the area. It's very sensitive right now over the last 3 years. Even at this preliminary stage, can you talk through any of the type of water redirection that it doesn't land in these residential neighborhoods? That's what these people are.
I will bring up my drainage expert, Dean Martin, PE.
I thought we were just going to get a song with that name.
Possibly one question.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I think it comes down to the same thing, is that they're talking about a lot of changes and this and that, and the sensitivities to the area and everything like that. I realize that is a particular piece of property which they wish to develop. Would it not be simpler at the end, though, and probably even more cost-effective, to put the same sort of development into an area nearby, but the other side of 41, or perhaps more to the north, where you have about a 20-foot to 25-foot height above water, and more stable ground, a more open area, that sort of thing, and build it there. In the end, it would probably be cheaper.
Thank you for your comment. That would be a question for the developer as to why he selected this particular piece of property.
Good morning, Dean Martin, for the record. What was the question?
Just addressing the primary concern of the room, the off-site flooding factors that this development might cause.
As Veronica stated, we have to get a water management permit from the district and also from FDOT, which is very stringent. All the runoff that's currently going towards Brooks Road will be bermed onto our site and discharged into the wetlands to maintain the hydro period of the wetlands. So I think overall we'll be improving the drainage along Brooks Road because of that.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the public portion of today's hearing. This is not a venue where we're here to adjudicate what's right, wrong, fair, or not. We're here for a specific purpose, which is to, as a LPA, conclude if it does or does not comply with the comprehensive land use plan. So this concludes the public portion. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Members of the LPA. Having heard the applicant, the county, and staff, what are your thoughts?
I'll start. I think you've got some improvements coming to this area because of this project through sidewalks along the Brooks Road, redirecting the water management to, rather than sheet flow south onto Brooks Road, redirecting it to outfall into the wetland. I think those are positives. I think it is difficult for us to review the criteria of the mixed-use overlay without a companion site plan. And I know it's the nature of conventional zonings that you're not going to see that. So I think it's something, well, thank you, but that's not part of the CPA that is going forward. They could change that. So I think it's a little bit more difficult without a companion planned development. But that said, this is the most intense future land use category that the county has. And because of that, I think the intention of this property for years has been to develop in a very intense manner. I think the mixed-use overlay is a positive overlay for the county, and extending that along 41 I think does make sense. I understand the concerns of the residents in the room, but I would say trust the process. You've got state review, you've got county review, and several other thresholds to protect against additional flooding. This will be a sophisticated water management system. So for those reasons, I am in support of this request.
Thank you for your comments. Vaughn?
In review of this request, I hear where the public is coming from. I have those same concerns myself where I live near the mixed-use overlay. However, I'm given this task of, saying if this is consistent with the LEED plan, and I've read through the LEED plan many times, and it is, I find what staff has put forth, consistent, and it meets the criteria. It's adjacent to the mixed-use overlay, and it already has intensive development as a future land use. So it's already preset to be intensive development. We're not changing that. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
Yeah, simply put, it's consistent. That's what we have an opportunity to comment on in this committee. I was trying to, for the public's sake, to explore the drainage concerns that were there, and it seems like they have plans of trying to mitigate that on site, and we have to take the word for that and trust the process as other committee members have said, to prove that. So I'm in support.
So this train has many stops. Zoning is one of them. There's already a zoning action happening. Drainage, FDOT, the permitting is ad nauseum. And there will be many opportunities for people to review these actions and to find in their respective stops whether they meet the criteria or not. But this stop is about, does it comport with the comprehensive land use plan as written? And I share my colleague's opinion that, and the staff's opinion, that as it relates to the comp plan, I believe that the applicant is in compliance with that comp plan, and therefore I'm going to ask that the LPA provide a motion to, I believe it's adopt.
I'll make that motion to adopt the CPA 2024-00006, referred to as the Horizon Tamiami plan.
Thank you. Motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect the LPA is recommended to BOCC to adopt. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.
You're all bought and paid for, aren't you?
Okay, the next agenda item is agenda item 4B as in Bravo. It pertains to CPA 2025-00001, Haunch 41 CPA. Which reads, to amend Lee Plan Map 1A, future land use map to change subject properties future land use from suburban to central urban to allow for commercial and light industrial uses along US 41 Tamiami Trail North. The subject property is located along the west side of North Tamiami Trail, approximately 1/4 mile south of Del Prado Boulevard North. Do we have an applicant? Thank you.
Yes, and good morning, members of the LPA. For your record, my name is Richard Aiken. I'm here this morning representing the applicant. I also have Cindy Leal, who is the project planner here with me with Insight, and she's going to walk through the specifics of the application here in a minute. We have Yuri Baikal, who's the transportation consultant with TR Transportation here, if there are any questions about his analysis. As you already indicated, this is an application to amend the future land use map, specifically map 1A, to go from suburban future land use, which is existing on the site, to central urban. And you can see that the property is outlined. It's got frontage on US 41. And ultimately, Cindy's going to go through this, but the bottom line is right now, the property has existing IL and commercial zonings on site. Those zonings and industrial land use is not allowed in the suburban future land use category. So what we have is somewhat of a unique scenario where the future land use doesn't allow the existing underlying zoning. And so what we're trying to do is to correct that inconsistency. We also have a companion MPD, which will be a mix of light industrial and commercial zoning, which will be consistent with what the existing conventional zonings are on site. But we do need to correct this internal inconsistency with what's out there right now so that we can move forward to that end. So with that, I will turn it over to Cindy so that she can go through some details.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Cindy Leal Brizuela. For the record, I am a principal planner at Ensite. The case before you today is Haunch 41 CPA. The applicant is Haunch Docks and Lifts. I do want to point out there is an error on this slide. It's the acreage. It is roughly 19.36. I did want to clarify that. The future land use is suburban, as Richard mentioned, and the zoning is IL and CG. The dashed line that you see on the aerial roughly shows where that delineation is between the two zoning districts. The request is to amend map 1A, which is the future land use map, and that is, again, from suburban to central urban to allow for the industrial land uses. As you can see here in policy 1.1.5 regarding the suburban future land use category, industrial land uses are not permitted. Therefore, the only uses that would be permitted essentially on that back portion of the site would be more commercial in nature. The central urban future land use category, which is the category that we are proposing for this site, does allow a larger mix. It says residential, commercial, public, and quasi-public and limited light industrial land uses will continue to predominate this future land use category. As you can see, this is the future land use map amendment that we are proposing. We are close to central urban at the southeast corner. A good portion of the North Fort Myers community is within the central urban future land use category. An environmental analysis was conducted for this site. I did want to point out that the majority of the site's wetlands are very low quality. They have exotic infestation, and during this process, being the permitting process, they will have to go through an ERP consistent with their formal JD approval from the South Florida Water Management District. Therefore, the clearing would be consistent with those parameters that are already set forth. Additionally, a traffic study was also conducted, and the findings included a decrease in the trip generation. Again, this is due to the conversion of that commercial intensity that would have been allowed. Now, if we convert that to light industrial, your trip generation goes down. Also, the adjacent roadways are not reduced. Their level of service is not reduced based on a 5-year and 20-year analysis. That's it for our presentation.
Do you have any questions for the applicant? Justin?
Yeah, just a quick one. Can you confirm some of the connection points and any capacity reservations you might have as it relates to utilities?
Did you want to? I'm going to let Brian Smith answer that. He's a principal at Ensite, and he will be handling all of the utility permitting.
All right, great.
Good morning, Brian Smith with Ensite. I'm the principal and owner. Your question was about utilities. We did get letters of availability from both Lee County Utilities and FGUA. This project site does fall within the FGUA for sewer. The closest utility is, a few hundred feet to the north. There's a 4-inch force main that actually crosses east over 41 and then runs into a 12-inch force main that's along Del Prado. So we do have letters from both agencies. that we are allowed to make those connections. We do have a 12-inch water main that runs right along our property line.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dawn?
No, no questions.
Okay, I have no questions. Okay. Thank you. Staff?
Good morning. Lindsay Karcheski, planner with the Community Development Planning Section. The case before you is in reference to the Hanch 41 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, case CPA 2025-00001. The request is to amend Map 1A, the future land use map, to redesignate a 19.36 acre property to the central urban future land use category from the suburban future land use category to support a mixture of light industrial and commercial uses. The applicant has also submitted a companion rezone application to rezone the property from industrial and general commercial to multi-use plan development. On the left is the existing future land use map, and on the right is the proposed future land use map. Note that the map on the left does not identify any wetlands on the subject property. However, it has been determined by the South Florida Water Management District that there are 4.92 acres of wetlands within the subject property, as shown on the proposed future land use map on the right. The subject property is located at 17701 North Tamiami Trail in North Fort Myers, Florida, along the west side of North Tamiami Trail and approximately a quarter of a mile south of Del Prado Boulevard. The subject property is currently undeveloped. The subject property is in an area of the county that's experiencing growth. The surrounding area consists of commercial, residential, and agricultural zoning. The central urban future land use category allows for the same uses as the suburban future land use category with the addition of limited light industrial uses. The Lee Plan encourages mixed-use development within the central urban future land use category, making this amendment more consistent with the surrounding location of the property and the intended future development of the property. The subject property is in an area that has adequate public facilities and services readily available and in an area where development can be created in a contiguous pattern. The proposed amendment does demonstrate consistency with Lee Plan Objective 2.2. The subject property is in the North Fort Myers Community Plan area, which aims to enhance the livability and economic vitality of the area. The proposed amendment would encourage mixed-use, compact development and would facilitate future development of the site, consistent with Goal 30 of the Lee Plan. The applicant has also satisfied the public information meeting requirements in accordance with Lee Plan Objective 17.1. Policy 124.1.2 describes wetlands protection regulations. Note that if residential uses were to be proposed in the future, the allowed density may be impacted by the wetlands acreage. The applicant has provided letters of availability from the following services. The subject property is in an area of the county that's experiencing significant growth, while being located approximately a quarter of a mile from the intersection of two major arterials, Del Prado Boulevard and US 41. Public services and infrastructure are currently available at the subject property, and the applicant has provided all required documentation for the proposed amendment. Based off this analysis and the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the proposed amendment as shown in attachment 1, and staff is available for questions.
Are there any planned improvements on US 41 in this area since it's both failing without or with the project?
I'm going to sit down and have the staff help with this.
Mr. Bykow is here. I'm confident he can answer that question.
morning. For the record, Yuri Baika with TR Transportation Consultants. No, I'm not aware of any long-range or short-range improvements, nor any FDOT funding for any improvements. Yeah.
Is staff has sat down?
We are available for questions.
Is there any concern that if this were to be approved, that there is now an enclave? If you put that aerial up,
The proposed future land use, yeah.
Thank you.
There wasn't any concerns with this in my mind. I think this is close enough to the intersection of Del Prado and 41 that it should be anticipated that these other properties will likely go through a similar conversion in the near future.
I did also want to add that due to the adjacency to the city of Cape Coral, we do have to take into consideration their existing future land use at that location as well, and have determined that it would also be consistent with theirs.
Determined what?
That it would be consistent with their existing future land use adjacent to the site where the city of Cape Coral has jurisdiction. Their current future land use at that location is mixed use. It allows for 25 dwelling units an acre and an FAR, which is a floor area ratio of 1.0. It's fairly intensive compared to a lot of the future land use categories in Lee County.
Is there any connectivity or transportation concerns? I know the transportation guy sat down, but as far as access, does the site have access now?
Did you want to? Okay, sure. Brian Smith.
Just like the previous applicant, we've already met with FDOT in terms of where our access could be. Currently, right now, what we're proposing is a right-in, right-out only, because that's all they're going to allow us to have. FDOT, as well as Lee County, they want interconnectivity between parcels. We can potentially provide that to the north, to the south. It's already built. I think it's a golf cart sales facility. We're in talks with them as well as the owner in terms of can we have a connection there, because they're at a full median access point. So we're in full talks with all the potential access connections that we can have on the property.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question while you're up there. In terms of the clustering that's planned around the wetlands, I know it's preliminary. What's the plan for managing stormwater?
Again, per the previous applicant, well, and Jennifer said it very well, we have to do a robust stormwater management system. We basically have to comply with all the South Florida Water Management District rules, FDOT rules, which are actually more stringent than South Florida Water Management District in terms of what water can actually come off site to go into the US 41 right away. Therefore, this entire piece of property will have what you usually see in most master developments is a stormwater berm that actually collects all stormwater from the site. So if you take a piece of property, any vacant piece of property right now, when a drop of rain goes, it's allowed to go just about anywhere. It can sheet flow to US 41, it can sheet flow to your neighbors, it can sheet flow north and south. When we're done, it's not allowed to sheet flow anywhere. It has to stay on site. It has to be stored before it can actually discharge. And that discharge can be located in the wetlands to kind of keep that hydro period going, or it can actually go into US 41 right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone want to opine on this?
Make a motion for approval of CPA 2025-000. I think I got enough zeros, 4 zeros and a 1. Haunch, referred to as Haunch 41 CPA map 1-A FLUM for approval.
Thank you, Dustin. Second?
I'll second.
Jennifer, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, this takes us to our land development code amendments.
Excuse me. Good morning. For the record, Adam Mendez. I'm a principal planner with the Community Development Zoning section. The last item before you is a limited amendment to the land development code. As you may recall or know, back in June the board directed staff to propose amendments to the Land Development Code to reduce inefficiencies and to allow for boathouses and dock pavilions to go through a, we'll say, smoother permitting process. Currently, boathouses exceeding 1,000 square feet have to go through a special exception process. In any instance, the proposed amendments before you would allow 3 pathways to exceed the cap currently in the Land Development Code for boathouses and dock pavilions. In addition, the definitions of single-family boat slip or single-family docking facility have been amended to clarify that the dock and the boathouses, the related boathouses, may be developed prior to a principal single-family structure. And then last is just some Scrivener's errors and clarifications throughout the chapters. So with that, staff is seeking input on whether or not these amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan, and I'm happy to go through these page by page.
Does the LPA want to have Adam address these independently or summarily?
I don't need them to be addressed one by one.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we'll look at it on a summary basis, and I did have one question, and it's, Adam, I'm not finding the specific reference, but for memory, there was a definition of a dock, and many times 2 jet skis will be the equivalent of 1 boat. So, having not annotated it in my iPad, when there's an allocation, I think there were 2 allowed per residential property, and if you have 2 jet skis, does that count for 2 docks? Or are 2 jet skis 1 dock and you can have a boat?
So slips and the actual docking facility are distinguished. So the amount of slips that you can have on a dock is dependent on whether or not you fall under the single-family exemption, which under the Manatee Protection Plan allows you 2 slips. I don't believe that a jet ski slip and a regular boat slip are distinguished. They're the same. So a slip is a slip, regardless of the size of the watercraft. Now you can seek additional slips beyond 2 consistent with the Manatee Protection Plan.
That's beyond the reach of my question. The question, pun intended, it will be very slippery if we don't have some clarity that 2 jet skis equal 1 slip. Is there anywhere in the codification that speaks to that?
2 jet skis equal 1 slip. So you have a concern that we'll have more slips that, or more watercrafts than what's intended.
My concern is that the guy pays $3 million for 100 feet on San Carlos Bay, and he wants to have 2 jet skis and a boat, but the code precludes him from that because the 2 jet skis equal the boat. And you can have 2 jet skis fore and aft on 1 lift, and you can have a boat on another lift without expanding the functionality or the use of the area.
I think I understand your concern. The scope of the amendments that the board directed staff to entertain was to streamline permitting process relating to boathouses and dock pavilions. I don't think that we got into deciding whether or not jet skis should count equivalently to, or not equivalently to, other watercraft facilities, or whether watercrafts in the code. So I don't think that was part of this review. I'll let Mr. Adams discuss this if he has any comments on this.
Sure. Are you talking about, so it's basically a boat lift, right? Are you talking about being able to put 2 jet skis on 1 boat lift, or each jet ski has its own lift? Because I think that's how the county regulates it, is you're permitting basically the boat lift.
Okay.
And there's a limit of 2 by right, but then there's a process that you can go through on residential properties to have additional lifts, and you just have to comply with the
So if somebody has 2 lifts, that is the equivalent, and what you put on those lifts is up to you.
Right. And like Adam had mentioned, there is a process to get additional lifts. You just have to go through the
Yeah,
process.
but, nobody wants to have brain damage to get a jet ski for their, that's just too much. But if the code is clear, and though it may be beyond this reach, I would encourage staff to consider that going forward, because that's a reality, and that often happens, and it would make it easier for the objective, which is to simplify this and make it more expedient, to have that clarified. So that's some of my comments on this agenda item.
Take those under advisement. Thank you.
You got 'em. Anyone want to make a motion on agenda item 5A?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Don, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes. Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.